Simcha, I realized that we are not used for Simcha so much. We got very tired.
Sorry.
There are people who are used to it, so they don't get so tired. I guess we are not so used to Simchas one after another, so I got very tired. So the Hashem should have us to continue to be tired only of Simchas. Like I mentioned to you, I had three Simchas. I left here Wednesday. My niece got married Thursday night across the street, the same place that I got married, the same home. Rabbi Josef got married across the street, from a block away from 770. And then my parents were there. Same hall, same food, same schnitzel, same.
It was so
Everything
nice
the
to see a
same.
picture of your mom
You saw a picture of my mom?
on the video.
Oh yeah. And then my nephew got married 2 nights ago. My brother-in-law Seifer's son, Marozov from Seattle. Same hall, same place, same food.
Well, that's good. Same time, same place.
And then on
A girl from New York?
the girls from Crown Heights, yeah, Posner. Chabad Russian Chassidim. Posner. Yeah. Huh? Where? It's Posner. Could be. And then my nephew on Sunday night I was in Monsey, actually right where the attack was, like a few blocks away. The attack was Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos. And Sunday we were there, all of us, the whole family. We had Sheva Brachot. I think Rochi posted on the chat as we dancing.
Yeah.
That was there, that was in Monsey. And then Sunday night, my brother-in-law Alta's son got engaged, Mandy. Sunday. Another celebration, Baruch Hashem. That grew from Sydney, Australia, Wolf, Rabbi Wolf. So everyone should travel on Simchas and happiness. And officially, we are on the general calendar. We started today a new year, 2020. So even though it's our Rosh Hashanah was already 3 months ago, but it's still appropriate to wish each other a happy new year. Why not? Can't hurt. Should be a new year, a happy new fiscal year.
Yes.
And we should all be learning and davening and doing all the right things. But we're going to learn. I'm happy that some of you came out. There was no email since Julia was not in the office today, but I sent on the WhatsApp, so I'm happy that you guys made it out here. And we're going to learn a little bit of very, very strong Parsha, Parsha's Vayigash. Parsha's Vayigash. It's all about Yehuda and Josef. Keeps on going. This drama doesn't end. This is a very dramatic few weeks. The development of the story of Yehuda and Josef. This all goes back, and it started actually 3 weeks ago in Parshas Vayeshev, when we studied about Joseph being very specially loved by his father, Yaakov. And then the brothers were jealous. And the story developed that Joseph was sold into Egypt and he's there for 20 plus years. And there is a famine in the land. There's no food. And the only place to get food is in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. All orchestrated, all organized by this Joseph, this Hebrew boy who advised Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to arrange the country in a way that there should be food enough for everyone, and not only for Egypt, but from the entire world. They came to get nourished, so to speak, by Egypt. So I want to speak a little bit about Yosef again. We know that Yosef is the only one of the tribes, usually that we refer to him as Yosef HaTzadik. Joseph the righteous, even though they were all righteous. Reuven was righteous, and Shimon was righteous, and Yehuda was righteous, and Benjamin was righteous. Everybody was a tzaddik. As in the Holy Zohar discusses that the tribe did not make any mistake in any of their behaviors. It was all, somehow playing out different kinds of services to God in ways which maybe not always not always made sense, not always was accepted, but they were all tzaddikim. Tzaddikim means righteous people. But the title of tzaddik was granted to Joseph. Joseph is called Joseph a tzaddik. He's the only one that is always referred to as Joseph the righteous. When we started the story of Joseph going back 3 weeks ago in Parsha Vayigash, so we also saw right away that Joseph is not just a favorism shown by Jacob, but the Torah begins with a very, very strong expression about the relationship of Joseph to Yaakov, which in the English, like sometimes, maybe many times, the depth and the richness gets lost in the translation. But when you read it in the Hebrew, and you emphasize it the way it's being emphasized by your masters, you learn a whole new dimension about who really Joseph was. So let's go back for a moment to page 198, when the first story of Joseph, when the story breaks out, so to speak. So in Parsha Vayigash, it says, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei Aviv be'eretz Canaan. Jacob settled in the land of his fathers, which is the land of Canaan. And then the next verse starts with very strong words, 4 words. Eile toldot Yaakov Yosef ben Shvayis Roshana. So how do you read it in English? Eile means what? These are. Toldot means the chronicles, the offsprings, the descendants. Yaakov of Jacob. Yosef ben Shvayis Roshana. Yosef at the age of 17 years old. But the Zohar HaKadosh, the Holy Zohar, reads it all differently. It puts the period after the word Yosef. And it reads it as follows. Verse 2. Let's read it together. Eile, these are toldot Yaakov, the offsprings or the birth or the legacy of Jacob, Joseph. Tio, nekuda. Joseph. You put a pintale, you put a dot, after a period after the word Joseph. Not Joseph was 17 years old. In other words, you have to remember, in the written Torah, there is no vows. There is no vows, there is no periods, there is no quotation marks, there is no question marks. Just letters on parchment. We have the Mesorah, we have the tradition how to read it. So we know that the traditional way of reading it is Yosef ben Shvayis Roshana Yo. The translation is right. On one level, on the level of Pshat, of the simple level, that's how we relate to it. Yosef was 17 years old. But if you go on a higher level, on a mystical level, then you can read it as it's being read on different worlds, in different realities. And in that higher reality, what does the reading say? Eile toldos Yaakov. These are the toldos. Toldos doesn't just mean chronicles. Tolda means way of life. Toldos means legacy. Toldos means his main core, his main way of being. So what is it? Joseph. Which means, in other words, that as even though Yaakov was the father of 12 sons, and each one represented a way of serving God, and Yitro was a tzaddik, a righteous person on his own. If you want to find out Yaakov, and you want to learn about Jacob and his life, and you want to know who really was Yaakov, you have to look on Josef. Josef was the one who personifies Yaakov. Yaakov and Josef are one. Yaakov and Josef are one. It becomes even more obvious that when the story starts and Joseph has a dream, and the dream is about being a bundle of sheep, and there are, he's surrounded with other bundles, and they all bow down to him. And the brothers say, "What are you saying? What are you saying? Are we all going to come bow down to you?" And Yaakov says, "What are you saying?" As you see in the next page 200, verse 10. The father tells Joseph, in addition to what the brothers say, "Vayisaper el avi ve'el echav," and he related this dream to his father and his brothers. Vayiga by avi, and his father became upset on that. The father kind of, told him off. How is he saying in English?
Scold.
And the father scolded him. Vayoyim aloi, and he said to him, "Moach aloim hazeh shecholamto." What is this dream that you had dreamt? Havoi, novoi, ani, ve'imcha, ve'achecha, and me, your mother, and your brother are going to come li'ishtacha pes lechoretza. Are we going to come to bow down to you to the ground? In as Rashi says, he was telling Joseph, your mother is dead. She's not around anymore. In other words, when you dreaming that me and your mother and the children are coming to bow down for you, the very fact that your mother is not here anymore only proves you that this dream is a meaningless dream. Right? He kind of rebukes him. It's not going to happen. Your mother is not around. She passed away last week in Parsha Vayigash. At this point, when Joseph is 17 years old, there is no mother. There is no mother. But at the same time, what does verse 11 say? Vayikanu b'Yaakov. His brothers were jealous of him. But ve'oviv shomar es hadover. His father kept the matter in mind. And Rashi tells us something very, very special. Usually, what does a shomer mean? Guard. Right? Everybody heard shomer atzair, kibbutzim, right? Shomer means guard. Shamar means guarded. What are you guarding? What are you watching? So Rashi says, and he brings verses to prove that interpretation, that here the word shamar means he was anticipating. He was anticipating it to happen. Meaning, he was waiting patiently. When is it going to be that this dream will materialize? And this is the irony. In one hand, he's rebuking him and admonishing him. How do you even think that something like that should happen? And at the same time, Shomar Esadover is waiting. This is going to happen. And it has to happen at some point. And how it's going to happen, and when it's going to happen. And in this week's Parsha, it's finally happening. It is happening. So it took 22 years for it to happen. But he's waiting for it to happen. Why are you waiting for it to happen? What is there in Joseph that Yaakov saw and believed that yes, something has to happen over here, that all of us should come and recognize that Joseph, he is the one. Parsha begins, Vayigash. This is Parsha, page 250. Vayigash Elov Yehuda. Yehuda approaches Joseph. Yehuda is the king. Yehuda is the melech. Yet, Yehuda has to approach Joseph. He has to approach Joseph. Joseph is where he is, and Yehuda comes and approaches him. In a sense, accepting Joseph as the one who is greater than him and higher than him. Can it be something greater than being the king? There's nothing greater than a king. What is Joseph? Obviously, you talk this past years, there's a lot about Joseph. But we have to know that when you learn a Parsha like this, and you want to understand who Joseph was, it's not only historically, so we should know who Yosef HaTzadik was. This is not a lesson in Jewish history. I mean, it's okay to learn some historical points too. But this shiur, like every shiur, every time a person comes to learn a Torah class, the lesson is for you, for me. We have to walk away with something. And if we learn about Yosef, we have to know who Yosef was in order for us to know how to identify with Yosef. And why is it so important to know who Yosef was so we can identify with Yosef? Because not many people know it. I mean, I'm sure you all know it. But one of the names and the titles of the Jewish people are the Yosefites. Where do we find it? You remember where we called Yosef? Where is every Jew called Yosef? No, not expected to know it. In Tehillim. In Tehillim chapter 80. Chapter 80. You can look it up. You see, I'm not making it up. You have a Tehillim probably right next to you. There's a Tehillim's right up here. Tehillim? No, okay, not here. Avram Chaim has a Tehillim. Tehillim chapter 80. I don't know. A regular Tehillim. This is chapter 80. It says a verse. David HaMelech says, Ro'eh Yisrael Ahazina. The shepherd of Israel, he says, Ahazina. What's Ahazina? Like Ahazinu. Listen, it says, it returns to God. How does it refer to God? Ro'eh Israel. What does Ro'eh mean?
Shepherd.
The shepherd of whom? Israel. So what are we called? What are we called here? What title do we have? Israel. Noheg Katzon Yosef. You, God, who is leading like sheep the Yosefites. You see the pasuk there? Second pasuk in where? Chapter 80. See, didn't make it up. Roye Yisrael Azino, Noye Katzon Yosef, Yoshev Akruvi Moifio, the one who sits on the chariot. Please present yourself. So this is the pasuk which we are called Yosef. We are called Israel, one name. Sometimes we are called Yehudim, sometimes we are called Yaakovites. But here is a pasuk in Tehillim that David HaMelech calls us the what? The Yosefites. We're not called the Reuvenites. Reuven was a Reuven. Shimon was a Shimon. Why are we called the Yosefites? Says Rashi on Tehillim. You know Rashi on Chumash. There's also Rashi on Tehillim. And what does Rashi say? Why are we called Yosef? Says Rashi, very simple. Because Yosef was the one to sustain us. Yosef was the one who provided for us. Without Yosef, we would not be here. We would have all died from hunger. So Yosef, being our provider and being our sustainer, merited to carry the title Yosef for the rest of history. We are always going to be recognized as Yosef because it was a man, Yosef, who took care of us in times of need in the time of the famine, which is being discussed in this parsha. This is what Rashi says. Comes Hasidus and Kabbalah and says, it's not only that. Just because somebody gave you food doesn't make you carry his name for the rest of life. I was just, we were in New York, so I rented a basement, I have one brother in New York, and many Farkashers came in, my parents came in, and others, and there's not, as much that you're being trying to be nice, there's not enough place for everybody. And my other children were there, Maishi and Shmuli, all together. So I rented, next to my brother Velva's house, I rented a basement, 2 rooms. We got ourselves together for a week. The name of the family, when we rented the basement, was Kugel. And I told the father, let me tell you a story about your father. Mr. Kugel, I want to tell you something about your father. Let me tell you a story about your father. 1984, Sukkot. I was a 15-year-old boy. And I was by the Rebbe, a whole Yom Tov by myself. Actually I was 14 years old. No, how old was I in 1984? Either 14 or 15, doesn't make a difference.
12.
No, I wasn't 12. I was definitely after Bar Mitzvah.
12.
I was born in 1970.
14.
So I was 14 years old. 14 years old. I was Bar Mitzvah in July, my birthday. And I made $700 at my Bar Mitzvah, a lot of money. $600, I bought a ticket to go to the Rebbe. Now, to New York, for Tishrei. Spent $600, we were able to buy a ticket to London. Those days you had to pay 10% on your tickets. So we bought a ticket to London. It was a small ticket. Then in London, you bought another ticket from London to New York. You didn't have to pay the 10% for all the way to New York. You had to save every dollar. Remember those days in Israel? The early 80s. Anyway, $600 I bought a ticket. For $100, they had this set of the Rebbe's talks. Now it's 39 volumes. In those days, it was only 20 volumes. In 1984. So I bought for $100, we were able to buy the 20-volume set of the Rebbe's Torah, and I spent my money for my Bar Mitzvah. That's it, Farkash. Anyway, I came to New York, and I wanted to not to miss anything by the Rebbe, especially pay your own money. You want to make sure that I was there, and I followed the Rabbi every davening and every time he went out. And I did not, basically almost did not leave 770. And it came to a point, they offered food for guests. It was like a big hall, and they gave food for guests, certain hours. And sukkahs, they brought food to the sukkah. And it stayed in the sukkah outside of 770, and it was a pot of soup, a pot of fish, and people helped themselves. Until I was ready to eat, there was no more food left. And as much as I am speaking, and I'm a public person, I'm a very private person too, and I was embarrassed to ask anybody to go eat by them. It was the first day, sukkahs, finished davening, it was 1 o'clock. And also in New York, the whole night you dance, the whole night, almost till the morning you dance in the street. And it's already 1 and 2, and no one is inviting me. I'm not expecting anyone to recognize them hungry, but there's thousands of people there, but it's almost like before Mincha time. It's such a long day, Sukkot time, 5 o'clock. And I'm standing by the Rebbe's sukkah, the Rebbe's sukkah outside of his synagogue, and I'm standing there with a friend of mine. Today he's in Toronto, Rabbi Man. And I didn't make Kiddush yet. Kiddush. And this short guy comes over to me, an elderly person, and he told me in Yiddish, Bocher, she gemacht Kiddush like in a Russian Yiddish. I said, if you're asking, no, actually not. He says, come to my house. Where do you live? I live right here, a block away, on Union. I went to his house, and he gave us Kiddush, challah, and fish, and we ate. And he told me his name. And his name was Mr. Kugel, who is the father of the guy who I stayed by in the basement. So I said, you know how many years went by since? It's almost 40 years. 36 years I ate by your father. I will never forget. Your father literally, I wouldn't say saved my life, but till today I don't forget that somebody identified a hungry boy. It's very easy to pass by when there are thousands of people not to notice, not because you're not looking to be nice, it's just you can notice people are going and coming. At that time, there was Mr. Kugel who took care of me. So what am I saying? So for the rest of my life, I'm gonna call my kids Kugel because it was a Mr. Kugel who took care of me.
Kugel.
I mean, I like Kugel and I eat Kugel, but I'm not. This is a very nice mishpacha, the Kugels, and this time I rented the basement. I paid like you pay B&B, whatever it's called. It wasn't like I wasn't expecting any favors because the father once took me in.
Was this person alive?
No, he passed away.
No, the son that you stayed with. Was he alive?
Sure, he's alive. Oh, was he?
When you had dinner, when you ate there, was he a kid then?
No, he's older than me.
Oh.
He wasn't home. Nobody was home. It was just
Okay.
the parent. He was married probably already by then.
Okay.
Anyway, Josef says, Rashi, why is Tehillim, David HaMelech in chapter 80 calling us Josef because Josef took care of us. Chassidus says, no, for that alone you don't get your name Josef for the rest of your life. There has to be something in Josef that we are Josefites. We are Josefites, and we deserve the title because something that we have in us which allows us to carry the title Yosef. So Chassidus goes back and talks about, let's first understand why is Yaakov so connected to Yosef, and then we're going to see why we are called Yosefites. Once we're going to understand the uniqueness of the specialty of Yosef. Yaakov, when he comes to power in this Parsha, and Bechlal in general, you see that Yaakov was a shepherd. He was a shepherd. He worked for his father, Lavan. Again, you go back a few weeks ago. How many years? Also 20 plus years. He worked very, very hard for his father-in-law, Lavan. What was he working for his father-in-law? What kind of job did he work for his father-in-law? Shepherd. Worked with the sheep. He worked very hard with the sheep, but he worked with the sheep. It doesn't say that he fixed his shoes. It doesn't say that he was responsible for the plumbing in Lavan's house. Right? He was sewing his garments. Was he the Schneider by Lavan? No. Was he the shoemaker for Lavan? No. Was he cooking the food for Lavan? No. What does it say? Like he himself says, a few weeks ago in Vayetze, I was busy with your sheep in the heat of the day, in the coldness. 20 years I'm working with you for the sheep, with the sheep. So you can assume that technically that was the responsibility of Yaakov, working with the sheep. Kabbalah says no, it wasn't technically. That was the job he chose. He chose that job in his years spending in Haran. Yaakov knew that Haran is a very difficult place. A difficult place not only physically, as it was, but mainly spiritually very difficult, very challenging. Haran is not only a name of a country. Haran is a word in Hebrew, which means charon af, means raging anger. Raging anger. Haran was a place which was provocative in making God angry in the way they behaved. That's the type of place it was. And in that place is where Yaakov is spending his life, away from his parents, outside of Israel, and he has to now build a family, preserve his own identity, and he's concerned. How am I going to make sure that I don't fall and stumble and get trapped in what Haran represents? Says the for that, Yaakov said, I have a solution. I want to stay away from everybody. But how are you going to stay? How are you going to make a living if you stay away from everybody? How's Lavan going to allow you to, to take his daughters if you're going to be staying away from everybody? Who is going to provide for you if you're going to be staying away from everybody? Comes Yaakov and says, I have a job. I even know what I want to do. I want to be a shepherd. A shepherd stays away from everybody. Gets up in the morning, takes the sheep out to the pasture, sits them with his little flute, sings and praises, connected to nature, doesn't hear the noise and the falsehood represented by this world of materialism and mundane. He doesn't see no building offices, he doesn't run to the banks, he doesn't hear cheating, he doesn't hear stealing. He's completely detached and separated. So the job of being a shepherd, that Yaakov introduces himself as being a shepherd, is representing and reflecting the way Jacob was developing his relationship with God in a place of challenges. I'm not going to deal with you. I'm going to stay away from you. I'm going to escape you. And that's how I'm going to preserve, that I'm going to safeguard myself. This is Yaakov. Great. This is Yaakov. But us being a shepherd, so he wasn't a shepherd that you can say on him, look at him, like they say in Yiddish, ashle mazel, like somebody who never made it, or he wasn't successful. No. The cleverness of Jacob was that he was a very successful man. And he did earn a nice living. And he did raise a beautiful family. And he did challenge Lavan in many ways. Involved, but not involved. Meaning, I am in this world, and no one can walk over me. I know exactly who I am, and I am dealing with Lavan, but at the same time, he was able to create the type of oasis, like an island for himself, where Lavan and what he represents should not affect him. Which sometimes is what a person needs to do, to be a Yaakovite. You can't ignore the world, but you have to find yourself the opportunity to deal with the world like Jacob. I'm going to be a shepherd kind of person. But then comes Josef. What is Josef? Josef is a whole different personality. Josef comes into Mitzrayim, and he's not only not a shepherd, he's the 360 degrees moved from being a shepherd. He's the most involved person in the physical affairs, so to speak, that we find by any of our ancestors, patriarchs, matriarchs, tribes. He's becoming the ruler and the leader of a superpower called Mitzrayim. He's the one. Every second of the day, every night, dealing with ministers, with officers, with messages, delegations coming, arranging food, this food, that food, all kinds of techniques, different guards at the different entrances to Egypt, writing down who came in, right? He had a whole system. He wanted to figure out, if his brothers are coming. Eventually, figuring out such a system that the entire Egypt becomes subjected to him. Maneuvers, all kinds of, techniques, and perhaps even tricks to get the whole country circumcised. Not because he wanted to kill them like Shimon and Levi. To calm them down a little. To remove them a little of their physical involvement. He does so much. He's completely involved and immersed in Mitzrayim. And yet, on the same time, there's such kedusha, such tahara, such sanctity, such purity. Doesn't give in an inch to the temptations and to the impurities of Egypt. This is the tzaddik. This is the righteous person, which the tzaddik, which the Torah tells us. This is the tzaddik. This is the righteous person that the Torah tells us who Josef was. That type of life, even Yaakov didn't have. Yaakov was involved, but still a shepherd. Josef was involved not as a shepherd, he was involved as a worker, as a full-fledged worker, entirely submersed in Egypt and its culture. And he remains Joseph. Without parents, without a father, without a mother, no messages, no emails, no information. Nobody knows anything about it. So who is he called? Yosef HaTzadik. And he is the one who gives us today the ability to be involved in this world, and at the same time to keep some level of clarity and say that the world is not going to dominate me. Who allows you to be in a world not being dominated by the world? Says David HaMelech in Tehillim, we have a name. One of our names is Joseph. And the Joseph aspect of our souls, that Joseph aspect keeps us with the ability and the strength to be in a world, and at the same time not being intimidated by the world, for sure not being controlled by the world, to have our direction. When you have to daven, you daven. When you have to give tzedakah, you give tzedakah. When you have to close Shabbat because it's Shabbos, close Shabbat because it's Shabbos. Yom Tov, it's Yom Tov. Yosef, I'm here. I'm walking down Manhattan, and you see them today in America on 47th Street. You see those observant Jews with their kippot, with their black hats, with their, Hasidic peot, and their beards. And it's the 21st century, they walk down, and they're running big businesses. And you see them standing next to the governor, next to the president, next to who knows what. Who gave us the strength for it? You have to be, out there in the field. I don't have to be out there in the field. I am a Josefite. Josef HaTzadik gave us the ability to be connected to God while being involved in this physical world. This is the power of Yosef. But it's a novelty, it's a chidush. It's a chidush, meaning this is not something that it should be taken for granted. To the point that the Zohar Kadosh comes and he takes a look at this Parsha and he says, when you turn to verse it's actually last week's Parsha. Vayakir Yosef v'sechov ve'eim lo yikiru, that Yosef recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. So the Zohar HaKodesh says, what does it mean he recognized and they didn't recognize? So Rashi brings that whatever, that it's actually on page 232. Last week's Parsha, verse 8. It says, Vayaker Yosef v'sechov, and Yosef recognized his brothers, v'heim lo ikiruhu, but they did not recognize him. So what does Rashi say? Why did he recognize them? Because when he left, they were all bearded already. They all grew a beard. But he was a young 17-year-old without a beard. So now, after 22 years later, he had a nice beard, so they couldn't recognize him. I mean, just the beard, Maisa with a beard. The beard is the beard the determining factor, recognizing another. Sometimes it is, but to that point, Hasidus and Kabbalah says it's not just about the beard. They couldn't recognize the idea, the type of personality, being in Egypt, and to be so holy, and to be so righteous, and to be such a tzaddik in Mitzrayim, doesn't make any sense. The way the brothers were raised and their level of serving God was that in order to be connected, you have to be detached. And here Joseph is like, with his kapota, with his payas, with his long beard, sitting in the office of Paroi Melech Mitzrayim. He's running the whole country, and he goes to the mikveh in the morning, and he goes to davening, and he goes back, and he puts on tefillin, and he keeps Shabbos. How do you do it? He couldn't recognize it. There was a special power in Yosef HaTzadik, what was transmitted to him by Yaakov. This idea is explained very beautifully by the meeting when Yosef meets Binyamin. This week's Parsha finally reveals himself, you all know the drama, what happens in this Parsha. Turn to a beautiful verse on page 254, verse 14. What does verse 14 say? Pasuk Yudalet. Vayipoil al tzavrei Binyamin ochiv vayef. Joseph fell upon his brother's Binyamin's neck and cried. Ubinyamin bacho al tzavoro. And Binyamin cried over Joseph's necks. He's crying over his neck. He is crying over his neck. What's going on with the necks? Why are they crying? So Rashi says they were not crying only because there was an outburst of emotions after not seeing each other, two brothers of the same mother, two brothers of one mother, and the mother is not around, the youngest brother. It wasn't only that. What does Rashi say? That when eventually Yeshua bin Nun is dividing the land of Eretz Yisrael to the 12 tribes, And obviously it was divided by lots. I'm going to learn that in the future. So the lot where Josef inherited in the land of Israel, one of the areas in the cities in that lot was called Sheila. Sheila was the location where the Mishkan, the tabernacle, stood for 369 years. 369 years. This is almost as the years of the temple. The temple stood 410 years, 420. Shiloh was the center of Judaism. That was the place that we came to celebrate on Pesach and Shavuot and Sukkot. And then people came to the Beis HaMikdash in the story of Shmuel HaNavi and Chana. So many great stories happened in Shiloh. In whose chapter, in whose lot, in whose...
Joseph.
It was in Josef's. And Binyamin sees that Shiloh is eventually going to get destroyed. So he's crying over the destruction of the temple, which will be positioned in the area of Joseph. Binyamin, he got the area which eventually stood the Holy Temple. That's Binyamin, that belongs to the tribe of Benjamin. So now, Joseph sees in his divine vision that Bet HaMikdash, that temple which is going to be built in the area of Binyamin, is going to get destroyed. So he's crying over his lot. So he's crying about his destruction, and I was crying about their own destruction. As the Rebbe once explained, if they all see each other's destructions, I'm sure they see their own destruction too. So why don't they cry about their own destruction? Why they only cry about the other person's destruction? The Rebbe said, if something gets destroyed in your own life, don't sit and cry. Try to rebuild it. But in someone else's life, cry with them. For another person, you're crying. For yourself, you're trying to rebuild. But what's the point over here? What I want to bring out, the connection to Joseph. The Rebbe says it. How is the Bet HaMikdash and the Mishkan, how are they being referred to? They're crying on each other's necks. What is the idea of a neck? Why is it connected to the neck? So it's brought down, like all the commentators say, there's a pasuk, the verse describes the Bet HaMikdash as being the neck of the world. Migdal David Tzavarecha. What does the pasuk say? Tzavar. There is verses which talk about different psukim in Tanakh, which talk about and describe the Bet HaMikdash, the temple, and the sanctuary as being the neck. Yeah, in Shir HaShirim, it says, Migdal David Tzavarecha. Your neck is like the Tower of David. The Medrash, just like the neck is in the height, in the upper part of a person, so too the Bet HaMikdash is like standing in the upper part of the world. So there's a connection between the neck and the Bet HaMikdash. That's why Rashi knew when it says that they cried on the neck, doesn't just mean literally that they fell on each other's neck, but they were crying about the neck aspect of each individual, and the neck aspect of Joseph is the tabernacle of Shiloh. The neck aspect of Binyamin is the Bet HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, and they were crying about the destructions of these three temples. But the Rabbi asks, why is the Bet HaMikdash compared to a neck? This itself needs explanation. Why do you compare it to the head? The head is higher than the neck. And if the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, is the highest, greatest, holiest part of the universe, so then we should call it the head of the world. They should have been crying on each other's head, not about each other's neck. Fall on each other's head and cry over his head, not about the neck. the Rebbe says, the head is actually the greatest part of the person, the most sensitive, the one who contains the greatest energies, right? All the senses are in the head, the brain, obviously. But the whole idea of the head is not to be a head to himself. The whole idea of the head is to transmit and to channel energy to who? To the rest of the body. In order for the body to live, the body has to be connected to a head. What is the connection between, what's the breach that connects the head into the body? That's the neck. That's the connection. The pipes and the veins, and which brings together the rosh, the top, with the rest of the body. Without a neck, the head doesn't fulfill its job. You can be a head from today to tomorrow, but you're not doing what you're expected to do. The whole idea of you is to energize the body. And if you can't energize the body because you have no neck to deliver that energy, there's no channels, there's no pipes, then you're not doing your function. You're not doing your job. In other words, because the neck is lower than the head, because it is closer to the body, that's why the neck has a certain advantage that even the head doesn't have. He's able to transmit the energy of the head into the rest of the body. What is the Bet HaMikdash? What is the temple? We'll need a temple next week. It's going to be a fast day called the 10th of Teves that we're going to again remind ourselves from the times of year, that we remind us of the destruction of the temple and which led to the destruction of the temple. One of those Jewish days, a fast. The temple was that God, the purpose of the temple was to bring and to channel godliness and light and energy into the entire world. That was the source of light. That was the light tower. That was brought Elikus, godliness into the world. And for that reason, the temple was not the head of the body. The temple is not on the head of the world. Rather, the temple is what? The neck of the world. Why is the temple called the neck of the world? Because the whole purpose of the temple is to take the godliness and the Shekhinah, the divine presence which dwells in the temple, and to do what? And to bring it, and to channel it, and to direct it into the rest of the world, to illuminate the world with godliness, to energize the world with godly energy. The temple has to be close to the world. It has to be on the neck. It can be on the head. That's what Josef and Binyamin are crying on each other's head or on each other's neck. What were they crying on? Each other's neck. Each other's neck. As Chassidus says, the head is always perfect. You don't have to worry. You don't have to cry about a Jewish head. The cup has the neshama is intact. Nothing is going to happen to the head. If you want to cry about somebody, you cry about his neck. What's going on of the relationship between his pure neshama and the rest of his body? What's going on there? Is there a flow? Is there a flow? Or God forbid, you have a clock which blocks the flow. We have a body, this is our existence, and we have a head, this is our pure neshama, and our job is to be like the Beis HaMikdash, to take the godliness of our soul and to direct it into our body, connected to the goof, connected to the rest of to the entirety of our life. And when I see that my friend's temple is destroyed, what does it mean it's destroyed? When there's no connection between the head and the body, the neck is blocked, then you cry. And then you cry. You cry and you ask for mercy for to open those blockages. So what is that? This is Josef. Josef was like the neck of the Jewish people by being in the one hand this big tzaddik who he was, and on the other hand, completely immersed in Egypt. Until today, thousands of years, when you find yourself in a position of being in the world and at the same time not intimidated, but rather presenting God into the world, you have to look back and you say, it's coming from who? It's coming from Josef HaTzadik. Hashem, yeah. Josef is the one, is the symbol, is the personal, is the one who gives us the direction. He's our dugma. How do you say? He's our model. He's our model. And his idea of Yosef is the idea of the Beis HaMikdash, God willing, which is going to be built soon by the coming of Mashiach. The whole idea of the Beis HaMikdash is going to be like Yosef HaTzadik. Mashiach is going to come, and the Beis HaMikdash is going to get rebuilt, and the world is not going to change. Meaning, we're not looking for the end of days, but there's going to be no days. There's going to be a world, but there's going to be something which channels the godliness of the divine presence into the world. No blockages. The neck is going to be doing its job. Everybody should take care of their necks. Make sure that your neck allows you to, to channel the blood. Right, David? They have to do, what do you call it? Exercises on the neck, right? That's important. Yoga. What else besides yoga? Stretching. Hot yoga, cold yoga. Any type of yoga. Whatever works. You got to open up the channels. This is how it works physically, this is how it works spiritually, this is how it works mentally, and this is our future too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
From the lesson of Yosef, we're going to live with that. We're living it this week. And Hashem should give us, like David HaMelech says, Noé Katzon Yosef. He should lead us like sheep. We need his leadership. If he doesn't lead us, we can get lost. Is it raining outside?